High in the Atlas Mountains, where the air grows thin and the stars seem close enough to touch, stands an ancient stone tower that has watched the heavens for over 3 centuries. Tonight, as the sun melts into the western horizon like honey dissolving in warm milk, the tower awakens once more to its sacred purpose. Within these weathered walls, Hakim ibn Yusuf moves with the quiet reverence of one who has spent 40 years in conversation with the cosmos. His weathered hands, marked by decades of careful instrument work and countless nights spent beneath the open sky, trace familiar patterns as he prepares for another evening's vigil. The oil lamps flicker to life one by one, casting dancing shadows against the curved stone walls where intricate astronomical charts hang like ancient tapestries. The tower itself seems to breathe with anticipation. Each stone has absorbed countless nights of wonder. Each archway has framed 10,000 different configurations of stars. The spiral staircase, worn smooth by generations of astronomers' footsteps, curves upward through chambers filled with astrolabes, armillary spheres, and carefully crafted telescopes that gleam like bronze serpents in the lamplight. Hakim pauses at his desk, where papyrus scrolls lie unfurled like sleeping birds, their surfaces covered in delicate calculations and sketches of lunar phases. His fingers brush against the brass astrolabe that has been his companion for 3 decades, its intricate engravings catching the warm light. This instrument, crafted by the master artisans of Cordoba, has guided him through countless celestial journeys, helping him map the dance of planets and predict the arrival of comets. Outside, the mountain air carries the scent of cedar and wild thyme, mixing with the subtle fragrance of the oil lamps. The temperature drops with each passing moment, but within the tower's embrace, warmth radiates from the stones that have soaked up the day's sunshine. Hakim pulls his woolen robe closer, its deep indigo fabric the color of twilight itself, and climbs the final steps to the observation platform. The western sky still holds the memory of sunset, painted in soft purples and deep roses that fade gradually into the approaching darkness. But it is the east that calls to him, where the first stars are beginning to pierce the velvet curtain of night. Venus, the evening star, hangs like a celestial pearl just above the darkening mountains, steady and brilliant in her solitary beauty. Hakim's weathered face, lined with years of squinting at distant lights, breaks into a gentle smile. Each night brings its own gifts, its own revelations. Sometimes it is the gradual emergence of a familiar constellation, rising like an old friend returning from a long journey. Other nights, it might be the unexpected streak of a meteor, writing its brief story across the darkness in letters of fire and starlight. He arranges his tools with practiced precision, the astrolabe positioned to catch the emerging stars, the water clock set to mark the passage of hours, and his observation journal open to a fresh page where tonight's discoveries will be carefully recorded. The leather-bound book contains 20 years of meticulous notes, sketches of planetary positions, calculations of eclipses, and detailed observations of the moon's endless cycle of transformation. As the darkness deepens, the tower seems to rise even higher, as if reaching upward to meet the descending night. The stone platform becomes a ship sailing through an ocean of stars, with Hakim as its patient navigator. He has learned that the universe reveals its secrets slowly, requiring not just keen eyesight and precise instruments, but infinite patience and deep reverence for the cosmic dance that plays out overhead. The first constellation appears clearly now, the Great Bear, slowly wheeling around the North Star in its eternal circuit. Hakim traces its familiar pattern with his eyes, remembering the night 40 years ago when his own master first showed him how to find this celestial compass. The stars seem brighter tonight, or perhaps it is simply that his appreciation for their beauty has grown deeper with each passing year. A gentle wind stirs the mountain air, carrying with it the promise of a clear night ahead. The oil lamps burn steady and true, their warm light creating a small circle of human presence in the vast darkness. Here, in this ancient tower, surrounded by instruments of brass and wood, parchment and ink, Hakim prepares once again to witness the nightly miracle of the heavens revealing themselves to those patient enough to watch and wonder. The night has truly begun, and with it, another chapter in humanity's eternal quest to understand the magnificent tapestry of stars that stretches endlessly overhead, waiting to share its ancient stories with anyone wise enough to listen. The second hour after sunset finds Hakim adjusting his brass astrolabe with careful, practiced movements. The ancient instrument gleams softly in the lamplight, its intricate engravings catching shadows that dance like whispered secrets. Venus hangs in the western sky like a luminous pearl suspended against dark velvet, her brilliance undimmed by the thin wisps of cloud that drift lazily across the heavens. Hakim's weathered fingers trace the astrolabe's rim as he aligns the instrument with the evening star. The brass feels cool and smooth beneath his touch, worn to a gentle patina by decades of use by astronomers before him. His breathing slows, matching the rhythm of the night itself, as he begins his careful observations. "Ah, bright Venus," he murmurs softly, his voice carrying the reverence of one who has spent countless nights in communion with the stars. "Tonight you show me another face of your eternal dance." Through the astrolabe's delicate framework, Venus appears larger, more distinct. Hakim can perceive the subtle curve along her edge, the gentle shadow that speaks of phases like those of the moon. This discovery never fails to fill him with wonder, even after years of observation. The morning star and evening star, which the ancients believed to be separate celestial beings, revealed themselves to be one wandering light following her own mysterious path. He remembers his mentor's words, spoken years ago in this very tower. Old Master Ibrahim had pointed to Venus with a gnarled finger, his eyes twinkling with the joy of shared knowledge. "She is the shepherd of dawn and dusk," Ibrahim had said, his voice warm with affection for the celestial wanderer. "Sometimes she leads the sun to bed, sometimes she announces his return. The poets call her the jewel of heaven, but we who watch and measure know her secrets run deeper than beauty." Hakim adjusts his position slightly, allowing the astrolabe to capture Venus's light more precisely. The planet appears to pulse gently, her radiance breathing with the subtle movements of the atmosphere between Earth and sky. He notes her position relative to the constellation forming behind her, marking the coordinates with the careful precision that has become second nature. The phases of Venus unfold before his understanding like pages in an illuminated manuscript. Tonight she shows her gibbous face, more than half but not quite full, her bright limb curved in a gentle arc that speaks of her position relative to the sun. In his mind, Hakim traces her orbital path, seeing her dance around the solar fire in a rhythm more ancient than human memory. As he observes, a profound stillness settles over the observatory. The distant sounds of the city below fade to a gentle murmur, like the whisper of waves against a far shore. The night air carries the faint scent of jasmine from the gardens below, mingling with the metallic coolness of the astrolabe and the ancient smell of parchment and ink that permeates the tower. Hakim's observations reveal the subtle variations in Venus's brightness, the way her light seems to intensify and soften with the movements of the upper air. He has learned to read these changes like a sailor reads the wind, understanding that even the steadiest star participates in the great breathing of the cosmos. The planet's position shifts almost imperceptibly as the night progresses, her westward journey marking time with celestial precision. Hakim finds himself moved by the reliability of her motion, the way she maintains her course through the star fields with unwavering dedication. There is something deeply comforting in this constancy, this reminder that the universe operates according to patterns that transcend the brief concerns of earthly life. His stylus moves across the parchment with gentle scratches, recording angles and positions with the methodical care of one who knows that knowledge is built grain by grain, observation by observation. Each notation adds to the growing understanding of Venus's behavior, contributing to a tapestry of knowledge that will outlive any individual observer. As the night deepens, Venus begins her slow descent toward the western horizon. Hakim follows her path with patient attention, noting how her brightness remains steady even as she approaches the thicker air near the horizon. The atmospheric lens seems to embrace her light, creating a soft nimbus that makes the planet appear larger and more mysterious. The dance of Venus continues, eternal and serene, carrying within its measured steps the secrets of orbital mechanics that will not be fully understood for centuries to come. Yet Hakim senses something of that deeper truth in his careful observations, feeling himself part of an ancient conversation between human curiosity and cosmic order. The evening star maintains her vigil in the western sky, a faithful companion to those who choose to watch and wonder at the night's unfolding mysteries. The cool night air carries the faint scent of jasmine as Hakim settles beside his astrolabe, the bronze instrument gleaming softly in the candlelight. Above him, the vast tapestry of stars stretches endlessly, each pinprick of light a distant sun holding secrets older than memory. Tonight, his attention is drawn to one particular wanderer, Jupiter, the king of planets, making its stately procession through the constellation Leo. He traces the familiar pattern of the lion with his finger against the darkness, noting how the bright planet has shifted since his last observation 3 nights ago. Jupiter hangs like a cream-colored pearl among the stellar diamonds, neither twinkling like the distant stars nor flickering like the oil lamps in the courtyard below. Its steady, unwavering glow speaks of something vast and distant, a world sailing through the cosmic ocean at its own unhurried pace. With practiced movements, Hakim unfurls his celestial charts across the low table, their parchment surfaces covered with careful notations in flowing Arabic script. Each mark represents hours of patient observation, nights spent tracking the wandering planets as they dance their ancient choreography across the heavens. He dips his reed pen in ink and makes a small, precise dot, marking Jupiter's current position relative to Regulus, the lion's brilliant heart. The planet has moved eastward, just as Ptolemy's ancient texts predicted, but at its own measured tempo. Where Mars might race across the sky in a matter of weeks, Jupiter takes nearly a full year to traverse a single constellation. There is something deeply calming about this celestial patience, this reminder that not everything in creation moves with urgency or haste. Hakim adjusts his astrolabe, aligning its brass rings with the horizon and zenith. The instrument feels warm in his hands, heated by the day's sun and cooled by the night's breath. Through the instrument's careful geometry, he measures Jupiter's height above the horizon, its angular distance from nearby stars, building a precise record of the planet's journey that will serve astronomers for generations to come. As he works, his mind wanders to the Greek astronomers of Alexandria, men like Hipparchus who charted these same stellar movements centuries before. They too had sat beneath starlit skies, watching Jupiter's wandering path, recording its position with the same careful attention that now occupies Hakim's evening hours. There is a profound continuity in this work, a connection that spans cultures and centuries, linking all those who have ever wondered at the night sky's mysteries. The rhythmic scratch of his pen against parchment becomes a meditation, each notation a prayer of sorts, an acknowledgement of the cosmic order that governs all things. Jupiter moves through Leo with the confidence of a ruler surveying his domain, unhurried and majestic. In its steady progression, Hakim finds an echo of his own patient work, the slow accumulation of knowledge, observation by observation, night by night. A gentle breeze stirs the pages of his charts, carrying with it the distant sound of water trickling through the courtyard fountain. The palace sleeps around him, but the universe above continues its eternal dance. Jupiter holds its position among the lion's stars like a guardian watching over the night, its reflected sunlight a bridge between the known and the infinite. He sets down his pen and allows himself a moment of pure observation, letting his eyes drink in the planet's serene presence. In the morning, the sun will wash away these stellar visions, But Jupiter will continue its journey, carrying with it the patient observations of countless astronomers, the accumulated wisdom of those who choose to watch and wait and wonder. The night air grows cooler, but Hakim feels no urgency to retreat indoors. Tomorrow night, Jupiter will have moved again, perhaps imperceptibly, but enough to warrant another careful measurement, another precise notation on his growing charts. The work of understanding the heavens cannot be rushed, cannot be forced, only received with the same patience that the wandering planets themselves display in their cosmic ballet. As the constellation Leo begins to sink toward the western horizon, Hakim carefully rolls his charts and closes his astrolabe. Jupiter's lesson for tonight is complete, a reminder that the greatest journeys unfold not in bursts of speed, but in the quiet accumulation of steady progress, each small step part of a grander design written in the stars themselves. The night air carries the scent of jasmine and desert winds as Hakim adjusts his telescope toward the northern sky. Above him, the Great Bear stretches across the heavens like an old friend returning home after a long journey. 7 bright stars form the familiar pattern, their light traveling across unimaginable distances to reach his waiting eyes. He places his hand gently on the brass eyepiece and pauses, not yet looking through the lens. Instead, he tilts his head back and gazes up at the constellation with his naked eyes, just as he did 40 years ago when he was a boy of 10, standing beside his grandfather beneath the vast expanse of the Saharan night. The memory washes over him like warm honey. He can almost feel the sand beneath his bare feet again, soft and still warm from the day's sun. The caravan had stopped for the night, camels resting in patient circles, their bells silent now except for the occasional gentle chime as they shifted in their sleep. The other travelers had retreated to their tents, but young Hakim had remained outside, mesmerized by the blanket of stars that seemed to hang so low he might reach up and pluck them like dates from a tree. His grandfather, Amjad, had emerged from their tent, carrying a worn leather journal and a small brass astrolabe that caught the starlight like captured moonbeams. Without a word, the old man had settled beside his grandson on the cooling sand, his weathered hands gentle as he pointed toward the northern sky. "Do you see the Great Bear, Habibi?" His grandfather had whispered, his voice barely louder than the desert breeze. 7 stars like 7 pearls strung on heaven's thread. Young Hakim had squinted upward, trying to see what his grandfather saw. At first, there were only scattered points of light, beautiful but meaningless. Then, as if by magic, his grandfather's finger had traced a path through the darkness, connecting star to star, and suddenly the bear was there, walking eternally across the sky. "The Bedouins call her Banat Nash," his grandfather had continued, "the daughters of the funeral bier. But I prefer to think of her as the great mother bear, watching over all the children of the earth as they sleep beneath her gentle gaze." Now, decades later, Hakim traces that same path with his own finger, drawing invisible lines between the stars just as his grandfather had taught him. The cool night air touches his cheek, and for a moment he is both the man and the boy, existing in that timeless space where memory and present moment become one. He remembers how his grandfather had opened the leather journal that night, its pages filled with careful sketches of constellations and notes written in flowing Arabic script. "My grandfather showed these same stars to me," Amjad had said, and his grandfather before him. Each generation of sky watchers adds their own observations, their own wonder to the endless story written in light. The stars seem to pulse now with that accumulated wonder, as if they remember every human eye that has ever gazed upon them with curiosity and awe. Hakim imagines the countless souls who have stood beneath this same constellation, ancient navigators steering their ships by its steady light, shepherds counting their flocks while the Great Bear wheeled overhead, lovers making promises beneath its watchful presence. He finally brings his eye to the telescope's eyepiece, and the stars leap forward in crystalline clarity. Through the lens, he can see what his grandfather could only dream of: the subtle colors dancing in each star's light, the faint companion stars invisible to the naked eye, the delicate nebulae that drift like cosmic silk between the bright points of the bear's form. Yet somehow, this enhanced view doesn't diminish the magic his grandfather had shown him. Instead, it deepens it, layer upon layer of wonder building like sediment in his heart. The stars are both exactly as his grandfather described them and infinitely more mysterious, exactly as familiar as childhood memory and eternally surprising in their beauty. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves of the olive tree beside his observatory, and Hakim hears in that sound an echo of the desert wind that had whispered through his grandfather's tent all those years ago. He closes his eyes and lets the sound wash over him, connecting past and present in the eternal dance of memory and starlight. When he opens his eyes again, the Great Bear continues its ancient journey across the sky, carrying with it the dreams and memories of every generation that has looked up in wonder at the night. And Hakim, standing in his garden observatory with the scent of jasmine in the air and the weight of precious memory in his heart, adds his own quiet gratitude to that endless constellation of human wonder, stretching unbroken from his grandfather's time to this peaceful moment, and onward into the infinite future of the stars. The summer air hangs warm and still around Hakim's tower, carrying the faint perfume of jasmine from the gardens below. It is well past midnight now, and the world has settled into that deep quiet that comes only in the darkest hours before dawn. Above him, the velvet sky stretches endlessly, punctuated by countless points of light that have become his dearest companions over these many years of watching and wondering. Hakim adjusts his position on the worn wooden stool, his weathered hands steady as they grip his astrolabe. The bronze instrument catches the starlight, its intricate engravings telling stories of geometry and time, of ancient wisdom passed down through generations of sky watchers. He has been observing for 3 hours now, but sleep feels impossibly distant. Tonight, the heavens have promised him something special. The first shooting star appears without warning, a brilliant streak of silver light that traces a perfect arc across the constellation of Perseus. It burns bright for perhaps 2 heartbeats, then fades as gently as it came, leaving only the memory of its passage. Hakim's eyes widen with delight, and he quickly reaches for his journal, dipping his reed pen in ink to record what he has witnessed. The first visitor, he murmurs to himself, his voice barely above a whisper in the sacred silence of the night. From Perseus to the Great Bear, magnitude of brightness. Exceptional. His handwriting flows across the parchment in careful Arabic script, each letter formed with the precision of a man who understands that knowledge must be preserved. As if summoned by his attention, another star begins its dance across the sky. This one moves more slowly, a golden thread being drawn by invisible hands from east to west. It pulses gently as it travels, growing brighter, then dimmer, then bright again, like a cosmic heartbeat made visible. Hakim finds himself holding his breath, not wanting to disturb this celestial performance with even the smallest sound. The meteor shower has begun in earnest now. One by one, then in pairs, the shooting stars emerge from their radiant point in Perseus, streaming outward like spokes of a great wheel written in light. Some are brief and brilliant, lasting only an instant before vanishing into the darkness. Others linger, traveling leisurely across vast distances of sky, their tails glowing with colors that shift from white to blue to the faintest hint of green. Hakim works steadily, recording each meteor's path, its duration, its relative brightness compared to the fixed stars around it. But even as his scholar's mind catalogs and measures, another part of him simply marvels. These are not merely celestial debris burning in the upper atmosphere, though his studies have taught him the mechanism behind their beauty. They are messages, gifts, small celebrations that the universe offers to those patient enough to stay awake and bear witness. A particularly bright meteor streaks directly overhead, so brilliant that it casts shadows in the tower. Its trail lingers for long moments after the star itself has faded, a ghostly pathway of light slowly dispersing into the night. Hakim sets down his pen and simply watches, allowing himself this moment of pure wonder without the need to measure or record. The shooting stars continue their gentle parade, some racing swift as arrows, others drifting like lazy fireflies in a vast garden of darkness. The radiant point in Perseus seems inexhaustible, sending forth its luminous messengers in a display that speaks of abundance, of the universe's endless capacity for beauty. Each meteor tells a story millions of years in the making, fragments of ancient comets, particles of ice and rock that have traveled unimaginable distances to write their brief, brilliant signatures across Earth's sky. As the hours pass, Hakim begins to notice patterns in the display. The meteors come in waves, periods of intense activity followed by quieter interludes, as if the cosmos itself is breathing. During these peaceful pauses, he allows his gaze to wander to his beloved constellations, checking on old friends. There is Cassiopeia, proud in her chair. There is Andromeda, stretched across the northern horizon. And there, rising in the east, the first hint that Orion will soon return to grace the winter sky. But tonight belongs to Perseus and his gift of falling stars. The shower reaches its peak near dawn, the sky filled with so many meteors that Hakim abandons his attempts to record them all. Instead, he simply watches, his heart filled with gratitude for this front-row seat to one of nature's most sublime performances. As the first pale hint of sunrise begins to touch the eastern horizon, the shooting stars fade one by one, retreating until only the steady, eternal points of the fixed stars remain. Hakim closes his journal, knowing that he has been witness to something precious, a reminder that the universe is alive with wonders, that even in the darkest hours, light finds a way to dance across the heavens, celebrating the endless mystery of existence itself. The evening air carries a hint of jasmine as Hakim climbs the worn stone steps to his observatory once more. Tonight, his carefully polished bronze mirrors await a different celestial visitor, one that has watched over humanity since the dawn of time. The moon hangs low in the eastern sky, a perfect crescent of silver light against the deepening indigo canvas above. Hakim's weathered hands adjust the angle of his largest bronze mirror with practiced precision. The polished surface gleams in the lamplight, reflecting not just his own gentle face, but also the soft glow of Earth's eternal companion. As he peers into the curved metal, the moon's surface springs to life in remarkable detail, transformed from a distant glowing arc into a world of mountains and valleys, craters and seas of shadow. "Ah, my old friend," he whispers to the moon, his voice barely disturbing the peaceful night air. "What stories do your scars tell tonight?" Through his ingenious system of mirrors, Hakim can see the moon's ancient face more clearly than ever before. The great circular craters, some large enough to swallow entire cities, speak of impacts from eons past when the heavens were more restless. Each depression catches and holds shadows differently, creating a landscape of silver and charcoal that shifts almost imperceptibly as the hours pass. He traces the boundary between light and shadow, what future astronomers will call the Terminator line, with his finger against the cool bronze surface. Along this edge, the mountains of the moon cast long shadows, revealing their hidden heights. Some peaks catch the sunlight like tiny jewels, standing proud and solitary against the darkness beyond. Hakim reaches for his leather-bound journal, its pages already filled with careful observations of stars and planets. By the soft glow of an oil lamp, he begins to sketch what he sees. His reed pen moves slowly, deliberately, capturing the moon's crescent shape and the subtle variations in its luminous surface. Where others see only a smooth, glowing disk, Hakim's enhanced vision reveals a complex world of texture and form. "The fishermen say you control the tides," he murmurs to his celestial subject. "The farmers plant by your phases, and the merchants time their journeys by your light. Yet here you are, a world unto yourself with mountains that dwarf our earthly peaks." Night after night, Hakim returns to study the moon's changing face. He watches as the crescent fattens, revealing more of the lunar landscape with each passing evening. The Terminator line creeps steadily across the surface, like dawn breaking over an impossibly distant land. New craters emerge from shadow, while others fade into the bright lunar day. On the night of the full moon, Hakim's bronze mirrors transform his rooftop into a palace of silver light. The complete lunar disk fills his largest reflector, every crater and mountain range visible in stunning clarity. The great dark patches, which ancient peoples called seas, though Hakim suspects they hold no water, stretch across the moon's face like continents of shadow. He spends hours that night, mapping the moon's features with careful attention to detail. The large crater near the moon's center becomes a reference point, its radiating rays of bright material stretching across the lunar surface like the spokes of an enormous wheel. Smaller craters cluster around it, each one a story written in stone and shadow. As the moon reaches its highest point in the sky, Hakim sets down his pen and simply observes. The gentle lunar light bathes his observatory in peaceful silver, transforming the familiar rooftop into something magical. The pomegranate tree below casts intricate shadow patterns on the courtyard stones, while the distant mountains appear as gentle silhouettes against the star-scattered sky. You have been humanity's companion for so long, Hakim reflects, his voice soft in the moonlit silence, guiding lost travelers home, marking the passage of seasons, inspiring poets and dreamers. And yet, through these mirrors, I see you as perhaps no human eye has seen before, not just as our celestial timekeeper, but as a world of your own, with your own mountains and valleys, your own ancient history written in stone. The night air grows cooler as the hours pass, but Hakim remains at his post, watching as the moon begins its slow descent toward the western horizon. The shadows in the lunar craters shift subtly, and the terminator line, now at the moon's western edge, reveals new details as the angle of sunlight changes. By the time the moon sets behind the distant mountains, Hakim has filled several pages with observations and sketches. His bronze mirrors, now reflecting only starlight, rest quietly on their carefully crafted stands. The astronomer stretches, feeling the pleasant fatigue that comes from a night of discovery, and gazes up at the star-filled sky with renewed wonder. Tomorrow night, the moon will appear slightly different, its phase advancing, its shadows shifted, new secrets ready to be revealed to those patient enough to look closely. And Hakim will be waiting, his mirrors polished and ready, eager to continue his gentle dialogue with Earth's most faithful companion. The night air carries the scent of cedar and wild jasmine as Hakim adjusts his position on the worn stone ledge. Above him, the Milky Way unfurls like spilled silk across the velvet darkness, its luminous band stretching from horizon to horizon in a gentle arc that seems to cradle the very stars themselves. He breathes deeply, feeling the cool mountain air fill his lungs as his eyes trace the ethereal river of light overhead. This celestial pathway has guided countless travelers and dreamers before him, yet tonight it feels as though it exists for his eyes alone. The ancient Arabs called it Tariq al-Laban, the path of milk, and Hakim can understand why. In the absolute darkness of these mountain heights, far from any earthly flame or torch, the galaxy reveals itself in all its gossamer glory, a flowing ribbon of silver dust and distant fire that seems almost close enough to touch. He reaches for his leather-bound journal, its pages already filled with careful observations and sketches. The parchment feels soft beneath his fingertips, worn smooth by countless nights like this one. With practiced movements, he prepares his reed pen, dipping it into the small vial of ink he keeps always at his side. The liquid catches what little starlight filters down, gleaming like liquid obsidian in the darkness. His hand moves with deliberate care across the page, forming the elegant curves and dots of Arabic script. Each letter flows into the next like water following its natural course, creating words that capture not just his observations but his wonder. The river of stars, he writes, flows strongest tonight, its current carrying the dreams of ancient light across the dome of heaven. The scratch of his pen against parchment provides a gentle rhythm, a quiet counterpoint to the profound silence that blankets these high peaks. Hakim pauses in his writing to study a particularly bright region of the galactic band, where stars seem to cluster more densely, creating pools of radiance within the flowing stream. He wonders about each pinprick of light, Are they suns like the one that warms the earth by day? Do they harbor worlds of their own, perhaps with their own astronomers gazing back across the vast distances, contemplating the same eternal mysteries? The thought fills him with a profound sense of connection that stretches across both space and time. His grandfather had shown him these same stars decades ago, pointing out the subtle variations in their brightness, the way certain regions seem to pulse with inner life. Now, as Hakim traces the same celestial landmarks, he feels that unbroken chain of human curiosity and wonder that links him to observers stretching back to the very dawn of consciousness. He returns to his journal, his pen dancing across the page with renewed purpose. Each star, he inscribes carefully, is a lantern lit by the Creator's hand, placed at distances so vast that their light began its journey to us before the first human ever looked up in wonder. The words seem to glow on the page, infused with the same luminous quality that bathes the mountainside in silver radiance. A gentle breeze stirs the night air, carrying with it the distant sound of a stream trickling over smooth stones somewhere in the valley below. The sound mingles with the cosmic silence, creating a harmony that speaks to something deep within Hakim's soul. He sets down his pen for a moment and simply allows himself to exist within this perfect convergence of earth and sky, feeling simultaneously infinitesimal beneath the vast canopy of stars and profoundly connected to the grand tapestry of creation. The Milky Way continues its stately progression across the heavens, its apparent motion so slow as to be almost imperceptible. Yet Hakim can sense its movement like the turning of some vast, cosmic wheel. In a few hours, different regions will dominate the view overhead. But for now, this particular stretch of stellar magnificence claims the zenith, offering its gifts of beauty and mystery to anyone patient enough to receive them. As he lifts his pen once more, Hakim whispers a quiet prayer of gratitude for this moment, for these eyes that can perceive such beauty, for this mind that can contemplate such wonders. His final words for the evening flow onto the parchment like a benediction. In the river of light above, we glimpse the infinite ocean of creation itself, and in our wonder, we touch something eternal. The ink dries slowly in the cool mountain air as Hakim closes his journal, but his gaze remains fixed on the luminous band overhead, drinking in its ancient light until his eyelids grow heavy with the peaceful contentment that comes only from communion with the eternal stars. The night air carries the scent of jasmine as Hakim settles into his familiar rhythm at the observatory. His weathered hands move with practiced grace across the brass instruments, adjusting the astrolabe with the tender care of a gardener tending delicate blossoms. Above him, the dome of stars pulses with ancient light, each point of luminescence a doorway to mysteries beyond counting. For weeks now, Saturn has called to him. The wandering star moves with stately purpose through the constellation of the Lion, its pale golden light distinct among the silver multitude. Tonight something feels different. The air itself seems to hum with anticipation, as if the very cosmos holds its breath. Through his carefully ground lens, Saturn appears as more than a distant point of light. It wavers slightly, dancing in the atmospheric currents high above, but Hakim has learned to read these celestial dances. His eye, trained through countless nights of patient watching, catches something that makes his heart skip gently, a shimmer, a suggestion of something more. He adjusts the viewing tube with infinite care, his breathing slow and measured. The lens captures starlight that has traveled unimaginable distances, gathering it like precious drops of liquid silver. And there, surrounding Saturn like a gossamer veil, is something extraordinary, a golden ring of light that seems to hover in the darkness of space. Hakim's breath catches in his throat. He blinks slowly, wondering if his eyes deceive him, but when he looks again, the vision remains. A thin band of golden radiance encircles the distant world, so delicate it might be woven from moonbeams and stardust. The ring appears to glow with its own gentle light, neither fully attached to the planet nor separate from it, but existing in some mysterious harmony. His hands tremble slightly as he reaches for his observing journal, the leather binding worn smooth by years of nightly entries. By the soft glow of a shielded candle, he begins to sketch what he sees, the round disk of Saturn at the center, and surrounding it that impossible ring of light. His pen moves carefully across the parchment, capturing not just the sight but the profound sense of wonder that fills his chest. The golden band seems to shift as he watches, sometimes appearing solid as beaten gold, other times translucent as morning mist. It maintains a perfect distance from Saturn's surface, neither touching nor falling away, as if held in place by some invisible force beyond his understanding. Hakim makes note of this behavior, his scientific mind working to catalog every detail even as his soul soars with the beauty of discovery. Hours pass unnoticed as he observes this celestial wonder. The ring maintains its gentle glow, neither brightening nor dimming, but holding steady in the vast darkness. Sometimes clouds drift across his view, obscuring Saturn behind veils of earthly vapor, but when they clear, the golden ring awaits, patient and eternal. He thinks of the ancient texts he has studied, the careful observations of astronomers who came before him. None had recorded such a sight around Saturn. Perhaps the ring appears only under certain conditions, visible only when the celestial alignments permit such revelations. Or perhaps it has always been there, waiting for eyes skilled enough and patient enough to perceive its subtle beauty. As the night deepens, Hakim finds himself filled not with triumph but with humility. This discovery, if discovery it truly is, serves only to remind him of how little any earthly observer can truly know about the vast cosmic dance unfolding above. Each answer reveals new questions. Each revelation opens doors to deeper mysteries. The golden ring of Saturn becomes, in his mind, a symbol of all the wonders that lie beyond human understanding. It exists in perfect silence, billions of miles away, following laws and patterns that perhaps no earthly mind will ever fully comprehend. Yet here it is, sharing its beauty with a simple astronomer in his tower, offering a glimpse of the infinite creativity that shapes the cosmos. He sets down his pen and allows himself simply to watch, no longer recording but merely witnessing. The ring continues its slow dance around Saturn, golden light playing across the darkness like ripples on a midnight pond. In this moment, Hakim feels connected to something far greater than himself, to the endless procession of worlds and moons and strange celestial phenomena that fill the night sky. When dawn finally begins to pale the eastern horizon, Hakim carefully covers his instruments and closes his journal. Tomorrow night, he will return to observe Saturn again, to confirm what he has seen and perhaps discover more about this mysterious golden companion. But for now, he carries with him the profound peace that comes from having witnessed something truly wonderful, a reminder that the universe holds countless secrets, waiting patiently for those humble enough to look up and marvel. The soft scratch of quill against parchment fills the quiet chamber as Hakim bends over his work table, silver ink pooling at the tip of his carefully crafted reed pen. Moonlight streams through the latticed window, casting geometric shadows across the scattered scrolls and instruments that have become the tools of his life's passion. Tonight, like so many nights before, he is creating something that will outlast the stars themselves. A map of the heavens drawn with the patient precision of a master craftsman. His weathered hands move with the steady rhythm of countless hours spent in this very position, each stroke deliberate and sure. The parchment before him is thick and cream-colored, specially prepared to hold the delicate silver ink that catches and reflects light like captured starshine. Years of mixing pigments have taught him exactly the right consistency, not too thin that it runs, not so thick that it clots, but flowing like liquid mercury across the page. Hakim pauses to dip his pen again, then continues tracing the familiar pattern of Ursa Major. Each star receives its proper place, measured and recorded from months of careful observation. But this is more than mere documentation. This is artistry wedded to science. The constellation emerges not just as a collection of points, but as a flowing design that speaks to both the mind and the soul. The Great Bear seems to lumber across the parchment, its form both mathematically precise and somehow alive with ancient energy. The astronomer's breathing settles into the meditative rhythm of creation. Outside, the night wind whispers through the date palms, their fronds rustling like distant applause for his solitary work. A ceramic oil lamp burns steadily beside him, its flame protected by a glass chimney, casting warm golden light across his workspace. The scent of olive oil mingles with the earthy smell of parchment and the metallic tang of silver ink. As he works, Hakim remembers the young apprentice he once was, watching his master create these same celestial charts. He recalls the first time he held a star map, feeling the weight of accumulated knowledge in his hands. Generations of sky watchers who had looked up in wonder and tried to make sense of the cosmic dance above. Now he continues that ancient tradition, adding his own observations to the great library of human understanding. Each constellation tells its story as it appears beneath his pen. Cassiopeia spreads her arms in eternal pride, while Perseus strides across the northern sky with his head held high. But Hakim sees beyond the mythological forms to the deeper patterns. The way certain stars cluster together, how their light varies with the seasons, the subtle movements that speak of distances almost beyond comprehension. His fingers pause as he considers the constellation of Lyra. The small harp requires delicate work, its stars forming a compact but beautiful pattern. He begins with Vega, that brilliant blue-white star that has served as his northern beacon for so many years. The silver ink flows in a perfect circle, and from this anchor point, he draws the connecting lines that form the celestial instrument. Each stroke is a meditation, each completed form a prayer offered to the infinite sky. The hours pass unnoticed as the star map grows beneath his hands. Other constellations join the growing tapestry. Cygnus, the swan stretching her wings across the celestial river, Aquila, the eagle soaring through star fields, Delphinus, the small but perfect dolphin leaping through cosmic seas. The southern sky spreads across another section of parchment, where Scorpius curves his dangerous tail and Sagittarius draws his eternal bow. As he works, Hakim imagines the future astronomers who will use these charts. Perhaps a young scholar in a distant city, tracing the patterns with wonder-filled eyes. Maybe a sea captain navigating by starlight, grateful for the careful measurements that will bring him safely home. Or another dreamer like himself, sitting beneath an open sky and marveling at the cosmic architecture that surrounds us all. The silver ink catches the lamplight as he adds the final touches to tonight's work, small notations in elegant script, marking the brightness of certain stars, noting their colors, recording the dates of his observations. This is not merely a map, but a living document, a conversation between earth and sky that has continued since humans first looked up in wonder. As the first pale light of dawn begins to touch the horizon, Hakim sets down his pen and stretches his tired shoulders. Before him lies hours of careful work, stars connected by silver lines, constellations flowing across the parchment like a river of light. Tomorrow night he will continue, adding new sections, refining old ones, creating a legacy written in starlight and preserved in silver ink for all who will come after him to read the stories written in the eternal sky. The night air carries the gentle warmth of late spring as Hakim steps onto the stone terrace of his observatory, the familiar coolness of the marble beneath his bare feet grounding him in this moment between earth and sky. Above, the celestial dome spreads endlessly, painted with thousands of tiny lights that have watched over countless generations before him. But tonight, something extraordinary awaits. As his eyes adjust to the darkness, he turns toward the eastern horizon where a soft, almost ethereal glow catches his attention. There, rising slowly above the silhouette of distant mountains, appears a sight that makes his breath catch in wonder. A comet, brilliant and serene, emerges into view like a celestial messenger carrying news from the far reaches of the cosmos. The comet's nucleus gleams with a gentle, pearl-like radiance, neither harsh nor demanding, but quietly magnificent in its presence. Behind it streams a luminous tail, gossamer thin and graceful, stretching across the star field like silk fabric caught in an invisible breeze. The tail shimmers with the faintest hints of blue and silver, created by particles of ice and dust that catch and scatter the distant light of the sun, transformed into something magical by the vast emptiness of space. Hakim moves to his writing table, his movements unhurried and reverent, as if sudden motions might somehow disturb this cosmic visitor. He lights a small oil lamp, its flame steady and warm in the cool night air. The golden light falls softly across his parchment, creating a small pool of warmth in the darkness. With practiced hands, he dips his reed pen into the inkwell and begins to record this moment, knowing that what he witnesses tonight may not grace these skies again for decades, perhaps centuries. Night after night, he returns to observe the comet's stately progress across the heavens. He notes how it moves against the backdrop of familiar constellations, tracing a path that speaks of incredible distances traveled and forces beyond earthly comprehension. The comet appears slightly different each evening, sometimes brighter, sometimes dimmer, its tail occasionally shifting direction as solar winds sculpt its flowing banner of light. On clear nights, when the air is still and transparent, Hakim can make out subtle details in the comet's structure. The coma, that soft halo of gas and dust surrounding the nucleus, glows with an inner light that seems almost alive. Sometimes he imagines he can see streamers within the tail, delicate tendrils that dance and flow like celestial rivers carrying stardust across the infinite. He records not only what he sees, but what he feels in these moments of observation. The profound sense of connection to something ancient and timeless. The humbling realization that this wandering star has journeyed from the cold, distant reaches of the solar system, following an elliptical path carved by gravity and time. In his careful script, he notes the comet's position relative to the bright star Aldebaran, its apparent magnitude compared to nearby celestial neighbors, the length and orientation of its tail. As the nights pass, the comet reaches its closest approach to the sun, its tail growing longer and more spectacular. Hakim watches in quiet amazement as this celestial visitor puts on its greatest display, knowing that even now, it has begun the long journey back to the outer darkness from whence it came. The thought fills him with a bittersweet appreciation for the transient nature of such cosmic encounters. In the pre-dawn hours, when the comet hangs like a jewel against the paling sky, Hakim often finds himself lost in contemplation. He thinks of other astronomers in other lands and other times who may have witnessed this same comet's previous visits. He imagines the wonder in their eyes, the same sense of privilege he feels now to be present for such a rare celestial performance. The comet's visit becomes a bridge across time and space, connecting him to a vast community of stargazers separated by centuries, but united in their shared amazement at the cosmos. As he makes his final observations before daylight claims the sky, Hakim carefully blots his notes and closes his observation journal, knowing that within these pages lies a record of wonder, a testament to humanity's eternal fascination with the mysteries that dance above our heads. The comet continues its ancient journey, growing gradually fainter as it retreats into the depths of space. But its brief visit has left an indelible mark on the astronomer's soul, a reminder of the beauty and grandeur that surrounds us, waiting patiently for those who take time to look up and wonder. The mountain path winds upward through silver moonlight, each stone worn smooth by countless footsteps of those who have sought wisdom among the stars. Tonight, a new seeker makes this ancient journey. The young student moves carefully along the familiar route, having traveled for 3 days to reach this sacred place of learning. A leather satchel bounces gently against their hip, filled with parchment and ink, ready to capture whatever knowledge the renowned astronomer Hakim might share. The night air carries the scent of wild jasmine and cedar, cool against the student's face after the heat of the desert below. Each breath feels cleaner here, purified by altitude and distance from the bustling cities. The student pauses to rest, gazing up at the canopy of stars that seems somehow brighter and closer than it ever appeared from the valley. These same constellations have guided travelers and dreamers for thousands of years, their patterns etched into human memory like ancient songs. Above, warm light glows from the windows of Hakim's observatory. The round stone building sits perfectly positioned on the mountain's crown, its copper dome gleaming under starlight. Through the open windows, the student can see the gentle movement of someone preparing for the night's observations. Tools are being arranged with care, scrolls unrolled, and instruments adjusted with the precision that comes only from decades of practice. The student's heart quickens with anticipation, but not with nervousness. There is something deeply peaceful about this moment of arrival, this threshold between seeking and finding. The mountain itself seems to welcome newcomers, its ancient presence both protective and encouraging. Even the wind moves differently here, softer and more purposeful, as if it carries whispered secrets from the cosmos above. The final steps of the path lead through a small garden where Hakim grows the herbs he uses for his evening tea. Mint and chamomile release their fragrances as the student brushes past, and somewhere in the darkness, a fountain murmurs its eternal song. The sound of flowing water mingles with the distant call of a night bird, creating a symphony of tranquility that seems to slow time itself. At the observatory door, carved from dark wood and inlaid with silver stars, the student hesitates for just a moment. This is the beginning of something profound, a journey into knowledge that will change everything. But before a hand can even reach for the brass knocker, the door opens as if by magic. Hakim stands there, tall and graceful despite his many years, his white beard catching the lamplight from within. His eyes hold the depth of someone who has spent a lifetime contemplating infinity, yet they crinkle with warmth and humor. He wears simple robes the color of midnight, and around his neck hangs a pendant shaped like a crescent moon embracing a star. "Welcome, young seeker," Hakim says, his voice carrying the richness of aged wine and the gentleness of rainfall. "I have been expecting you. The stars whispered of your coming 3 nights ago when Venus danced especially close to the moon." He steps aside, gesturing the student into the warm interior of his sanctuary. The observatory is everything the student had imagined and more. Shelves line the walls, filled with scrolls and books from every corner of the known world. Astrolabes of bronze and silver gleam on wooden tables, alongside star charts marked with careful notations in Hakim's flowing script. The air smells of parchment and ink, sandalwood incense, and the subtle metallic scent of the great telescope that dominates the center of the room. "Sit," Hakim says, indicating a comfortable chair cushioned with soft wool. "Let us share some tea before we begin. The stars will wait for us as they have waited for countless generations before us and will wait for countless more to come." He moves with unhurried grace to prepare the tea, each action deliberate and mindful. As the student settles into the chair, a profound sense of belonging settles over the room. This is how knowledge has always been passed down, from teacher to student, in quiet moments of connection and trust. The mountain holds its breath around them, and the universe itself seems to lean in closer, ready to reveal its secrets to this new partnership. The tea steams in delicate cups, filling the air with the scent of jasmine and honey. Outside, the stars wheel in their eternal dance, patient and magnificent, waiting to share their ancient stories with 2 earthbound souls who have chosen to listen with wonder and reverence. Tonight, the chain of learning continues, as it has for thousands of years beneath these same celestial lights. As the eastern horizon begins to blush with the faintest hint of dawn, Hakim al-Rashid sits quietly at his observation table, his weathered hands resting gently on the brass astrolabe that has been his faithful companion through countless nights. The stars above him seem to pulse more softly now, as if sensing the approaching end of their nightly vigil. One by one, they begin their slow retreat into the lightening sky, but Hakim watches them with the patience of someone who has witnessed this ancient rhythm thousands of times before. The mountain air carries the crisp coolness of early morning, and Hakim pulls his woolen cloak a little closer around his shoulders. His breath forms small clouds in the thin air, visible for just a moment before dissolving into the vastness around him. Below, the valley still sleeps in shadow, its villages and fields wrapped in the deep blue darkness that comes just before sunrise. But here, on his rocky perch high above the world, Hakim exists in that magical space between night and day, between the realm of stars and the domain of the sun. With reverent care, he begins to gather his instruments. The astrolabe, polished smooth by decades of use, catches the first pale light from the east as he lifts it from its wooden stand. His fingers trace the familiar engravings along its rim, Arabic numerals and constellation markers worn soft by countless measurements. This instrument has traveled with him from Baghdad to Cordoba, from the libraries of Cairo to this remote mountain observatory. It has measured the heights of stars over distant deserts and calculated the movements of planets above foreign seas. The leather-bound journal beside him lies open to pages covered in his careful script. Star positions, lunar calculations, notes about the wandering paths of planets through the zodiac. Each entry represents hours of patient observation, nights spent in communion with the cosmic dance above. Hakim turns the pages slowly, remembering the discoveries recorded there. The night he first calculated Mars's retrograde motion. The evening he witnessed a meteor shower so intense it seemed the very heavens were weeping silver tears. The quiet dawn when he realized that the stars he had been watching were not fixed points of light, but distant suns, perhaps warming worlds beyond imagination. The telescope, his newest and most precious instrument, requires the most careful attention. This marvel of ground glass and precise metalwork has opened windows to celestial realms invisible to the naked eye. Through its lens, he has seen the mountains of the moon cast sharp shadows across airless plains. He has watched Jupiter's moons dance in their eternal ballet, appearing and disappearing behind their giant parent. The rings of Saturn, mysterious and beautiful, have revealed themselves night after night, slowly rotating in the darkness between worlds. As Hakim wraps the telescope in its protective cloth, he reflects on the generations of sky watchers who came before him. The Greek philosophers who first suggested that the earth was round, not flat. The Babylonian priests who tracked the planets with such precision that their predictions still hold true centuries later. The scholars of Alexandria who measured the circumference of the earth using nothing but shadows and geometry. He is part of this unbroken chain of curiosity, this eternal human desire to understand our place in the cosmic order. The first golden rays of sunlight now peek over the distant peaks, painting the snow-capped summits in warm honey light. Hakim watches this daily miracle with the same sense of wonder he felt as a young student in Damascus, when his teacher first showed him how to use an astrolabe to tell time by the stars. The sun, that ordinary star that gives life to their world, begins its own daily journey across the sky, following paths that Hakim has mapped and measured countless times. Gathering his scrolls and notes, Hakim secures them in the wooden chest that protects his life's work. Here are star charts that show the precise positions of constellations through the seasons, tables of planetary motions that can predict eclipses years in advance, drawings of the moon's phases, careful observations of comets, calculations that prove the Earth spins on its axis as it orbits the sun. This knowledge, accumulated over decades of patient observation, will outlive him. It will guide future astronomers to even greater discoveries, just as the work of ancient stargazers has guided him. As the sun climbs higher, warming the stone beneath his feet, Hakim takes one last look at the brightening sky. The stars have faded now, invisible in the growing daylight, but he knows they are still there. They continue their ancient dance whether watched or not, spinning through space in patterns that have remained constant since the beginning of time. Tonight, when darkness returns, they will be waiting for him again, patient and eternal, ready to share their secrets with anyone willing to spend the dark hours in their company. With a deep breath of the mountain air, Hakim begins his descent toward the small stone shelter where he will rest until evening calls him back to his celestial watch.